The couple updates I wanted to start with, one, a really exciting one, and that is that we added the newest member to the CDCN family. The CDCN executive director, Mary Zaccato, had a little baby girl over the weekend, so we're really excited about Mary's little girl, Quinn.
Oh, yay, Mary.
Yeah, so Mary's now got two little ones. And of course, she was busy emailing about Castleman stuff like the day after her delivery, which is typical, and exactly what happened after her last child. But we are so excited for her and her husband Jimmy. They're just amazing and such important parts of the Castleman's family. So wanted to share that. And then the not so good news, Maleva can't be on tonight because unfortunately has had a challenging experience in her family that she's coping with. So Maleva's not on tonight, but we're thinking about her, sending positive vibes both to Mary and also to Maleva. So you guys are stuck with me to take you through the program for tonight. So hopefully I'll do my best Maleva impersonation and hopefully be as supportive and resourceful as she is. And I see that Penny has given me a cheers to that. So you're drinking something that looks nice.
It's a lemonade margarita.
Nice, good. Well, and I see Yankees giving me some bell ringing, so thank you. So for tonight, we love these community gatherings, and I love seeing you guys that are on the call. We've got a number of our team members who are on. I see Natalie's on. I see Amber's on. Sheila from our team is on. Chriswell is on. Sai is on. These are people who dedicate so much of their time and effort and energy to Castleman disease, and it really means the world to us to be able to spend time with you guys. So big thank you to all of you that are on, and also big thank you to our team members. I see Sheila's video. I know you guys all know Sheila well, and Natalie as well. So big thank you to our team for being on. Big thank you to the Castleman's team and family for being on. So as usual, we've got a simple program for tonight. We've got some slides that we want to talk through, but as you know, the real important thing here is just to connect with one another, share some updates of things over the last few months since we were all together, or many of us were together for the Patient Summit, and then answer any questions that are on you all's minds. It's this is an opportunity. We called it an Ask Us Anything. So anything that's on your mind, you can throw it into the chat throughout the few slides I'll take you through, and then at the end, easily unmute your line and ask any questions. Does that sound like a good plan for me to dive into the slides? Any questions before I jump into them? I guess the one thing before I do jump into the slides, and I just got to meet a new Castleman's patient who newly joined the community a few months ago. For those of you that I haven't gotten a chance to meet as yet, my name is David Fagenbaum. I'm a Castleman disease patient and also co-founded the CDCN 10 years ago, along with Fritz Van Ree, and have been on this journey now with Fritz and with so many of you to try to find better treatments and a cure for Castleman disease. So anyone new on the line, I'm so thrilled to have you guys on. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Oops, I'm all the way at the end. Sorry about that. So today we got through the welcome. I'll share some research advances and some publications, highlights from 2022, highlight a few points of progress from the last 10 years, and then we'll look ahead to the future. So this has been a hugely successful year. We don't spend all that much time in the CDCN reflecting on the past, but we're very, very much focused on the future. But this time of year is a really good time to reflect on the last year, and so we were really excited to look back and see that we completed 11 research studies this year. As a group, we had 20 research publications this year, which is a record for the most progress and productivity that we've ever had, and that's really a reflection of the team that we have. We've been building this team for the last 10 years, and we've never had a team that's better than the team that we have right now. In addition to the 11 studies we completed, we also pushed forward another 19 studies, many of which are studies that are on Sheila's docket that she's been pushing forward hard. Others are on the laboratory translational research side, but we continue to push them along. We added 7 members to our growing team. There's a few new names that some of you all will recognize when you look at the folks that are on this call, people like Natalie and Sai who are on and new, and then some of our veterans are, towards veterans like Sheila and Amber, of course, have been a part of the team for a while. We've continued our partnership with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to apply what we've done for Castleman disease to other rare diseases, in particular around drug repurposing. So as you all know, a real principle behind the CDCN is that when we learn something for Castleman's, and if it can be helpful for other diseases, we always want to share it with other diseases. We're so thankful that progress has been made for Castleman's. We want to make sure that progress is spread more broadly. We had over 100 patients and loved ones, both in person and also virtually, for our annual Patient and Loved Ones Summit, which was really special. I know many of the folks that are on the line right now were in person for that meeting, and it was just so great to be back. And I joked with Penny. Penny unfortunately got COVID sometime around the summit, and I joked with her that she was the one person that I really didn't think, we wanted to get COVID, because I think Penny might have hugged everyone at the patient summit, and I might have hugged Penny like 15 times. And so fortunately, I don't think it was too much of a super spreader event. And I think that we didn't have too many post summit COVID infections, but fortunately Penny's doing a lot better. And Penny, I look forward to my hugs at the next summit next year. So we also celebrated in a really big way our 10-year anniversary at our annual Quest for a Cure event. We had about 200 people come together in person, many people from the Philadelphia area who don't have Castleman disease, don't have a loved one with Castleman disease, but they just believe in what we're doing. And they donate their hard-earned money towards Castleman's research to help patients like you and me. And as I mentioned, from that event, we raised over $200,000 for Castleman's research, which was a really successful event. And obviously, all that work's going to go straight to research. Maybe I'll pause here and just see. I don't know if there's comments or questions in the chat. Feel free to throw them in there if anyone has any questions or comments, and we'll make sure that we hit all of them. So the next thing I wanted to highlight is that many members of our team just got back from New Orleans, Louisiana. We were down there over the weekend for the big meeting of hematologists called the American Society of Hematology. It's our biggest meeting of the year. We've been going to it ever since 2012 when we first started the CDCN. And it's we call it our Super Bowl because all of the best Castleman's doctors and researchers from around the world all come together. And it's an opportunity for us to present updates on research and also to share updates on treatment guidelines and to learn from our physician and researcher community. And so here are the 5 presentations that we gave. You can see the titles of them. One was looking at basically the burden of idiopathic multicentric Castleman disease, both the symptoms patients experience, the comorbidities they experience, which are basically just another term for diseases that patients experience in addition to their Castleman's, and then also the hospitalizations. We found that the average Castleman's patient spends 34 days hospitalized in the first year after diagnosis, and we found that about 1/4 of all patients receive dialysis, and about 1/6 of IMCD patients will be on a ventilator or will have been on a ventilator at some point. So this just highlights just how serious IMCD is. And unfortunately, we learn more and more about Castleman's from this registry. Unfortunately, we learned about how complicated it can be. But fortunately, thanks to you all contributing data, we're actually making progress at better understanding this disease so we can treat it better. Next, we looked at treatment and the effectiveness of various treatments, and we were really pleased to find, and again, this is using Accelerate data. So if you're part of Accelerate, your data was used for this. We were able to determine that a number of the treatments that are part of the treatment guidelines from the CDCN actually turned out to be the treatments that are most effective for Castleman disease. So for example, siltuximab, which blocks interleukin-6, it was the most effective treatment in both mild, moderate cases and also severe cases of Castleman disease. And that's the thing we recommend first. So that was good. The things that we recommend, actually worked the best in patients. And then other treatments like chemotherapy and rituximab work in certain populations, and really it made sense from the data the way that things are recommended. We'll likely need to make some tweaks to it based on the data, but this was a really positive result. Next, we looked into blood samples from patients. So if you ever given a blood sample to us, we've likely already performed studies on it, and we found a signal within the blood samples that pointed to a part of the immune system called interferon, that it might be playing a role. And fortunately, there are some drugs that block interferon and interrupt the way that interferon works. And so this is a really interesting insight. The next was work done in unicentric Castleman disease, where some of you all have had lymph nodes resected for your Castleman disease as part of the treatment. And some of you have let us know before the lymph node came out. So we've actually been able to work with your doctors to get a little piece of that lymph node here to pen when it's quote unquote still fresh, meaning that it hasn't been preserved yet in fixative, and then run experiments on that. And we have a MD PhD physician here named Josh Brandstandler, who all he does in his research time is study unicentric Castleman disease, and in particular perform experiments on these unicentric Castleman disease lymph nodes. And he's come up with a new process for how to do this. And so that's what this particular presentation was about. And then finally, we were looking a little bit beyond Castleman disease at what's called cytokine release syndrome, which is very similar to what we see in Castleman's patients, but in the setting of a treatment for cancer called CAR T-cell therapy. Any questions or comments in the chat that we want to touch on? I don't see any right now, but obviously feel free to throw them in there, and happy to address as we go through this. But 5 presentations on Castleman disease is something we're really proud about. So this was presented over the course of the meeting, and then we also held a dinner on Saturday evening with about 60 different physicians and researchers for Castleman disease from around the world who all came together, and then our scientific advisory board meeting on Sunday. So I'm not sure how well this is going to work. I'm going to try my best to make sure that that the audio sounds good. And if it doesn't sound good, maybe Amber, you just let me know if it doesn't sound good, but we're going to try to play a YouTube video. It's a 3-minute video. It's we played it at our Quest for a Cure Gala. And if you weren't able to make it, we thought we would play it for everyone now, but I don't know how well the video is going to play through Zoom. So we're going to try our best and see how it goes. And Amber, you tell me if it doesn't sound that good. Sounds good.
This year is really special as we're celebrating our 10th anniversary and a decade of life-saving research.
Hi, so tell me your name, where you're from, and your background.
Sure. I'm David Fagenbaum. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network. I came out of the hospital on fire to try to figure this thing out. As a third-year medical student, I had a little bit of knowledge about how diseases worked. I was interested in oncology, and all of a sudden now battling this deadly illness, I decided I wanted to get involved in the fight.
The title of the book is Chasing My Cure, but what I'm so excited about is this is actually chasing our cure. We're helping so many patients.
I think CDCN is a great organization. It's really a galvanizer for patients and also physicians to come together. Well, I want to join David in celebrating the 10th anniversary of the CDCN. I think it's been an amazing journey. A lot has been accomplished. We brought together patients, their families, physicians, scientists. We discovered new drugs. We developed treatment guidelines, diagnostic guidelines, and our other drugs in the pipeline. We continue to unravel Castleman's disease, and I can only wait what the next 10 years will bring.
COVID hug.
Hey, CDCN, happy 10 years. You've been with me since I was comatose, and you've seen me through 2 really bad flares and learning to walk again, feed myself again, and you've changed our lives. You've made things so much better for all of us, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, I'm Bridget. I'm the biobank coordinator.
I'm Crystal. I'm the Accelerate coordinator.
And we just wanted to tell you,
happy 10-year anniversary! Woo! Happy 10 years! Woo!
Happy 10-year anniversary, CDCN. Thank you to the CDCN for making me better.
I just want to wish the CDCN a happy 10-year anniversary. As I think about when we came together 10 years ago, never could have imagined how much impact we've been able to have over these last 10 years, and just so excited about the work that we're going to continue to do and the impact we're going to continue to have over the next 10 years. So happy 10-year anniversary of the CDCN. Thank you so much for all that each of you do to support our work.
Happy 10 years!
Nice. Well, I just love that video, and I saw it for the first time the night of our 10-year celebration. It was really, really, really special. So truly thank you to everyone for all that you guys have done over these last 10 years, and we're excited for the next 10. Oops. Let's see. Here we go. So a little bit more about some of the numbers around what we've done over these last 10 years. So we've raised about $1.5 million for research from the community, and that money has gone directly into research studies that have led to important findings that have made other organizations want to donate a total of $11 million on top of the 1.4. So, we never could have raised $12 million. I've certainly, pushed as hard as I can to get us to where we are. But with the funding that we have raised, that's enabled other organizations to really contribute heavily and significantly to Castleman's research, which has just been transformative. So, you have a disease here where there used to be about $10,000 a year of research that was done. And now, we have, millions of dollars worth of research done every year, which is something I'm really proud of. And we talked about how, we really like to think about how this can be applied to other diseases. And of course, we've done this in the context of COVID and also rare diseases. And now also thinking about how can we spread our repurposing approach to many other rare diseases. So this is a photo that you guys saw from the end of that video, and it's us doing our Castleman Flex. If you're new to the community, you don't know about the Castleman Flex yet, but we're going to get you to do the Castleman Flex. It's our way of showing that we're fighting back against this disease. So, with all of the highlights of this last year, the making scientific progress, helping patients, supporting patients, there's also been, tough moments where we've learned about patients that have passed away from this disease. And, as excited as we get with every patient that we help, we get about 1,000 times more disappointed with every patient that we're not able to help. And so these are some of the patients that have passed this year, some other patients that have passed in previous years that we think about all the time. And so I do think it's important for us to never forget the people who've fought before us. Pretty much every one of these patients has contributed their medical data towards Accelerate, or I think all of them have. And just about all of them have contributed blood samples and lymph node tissues. So, when our research team thinks about the incredible responsibility we have to push forward the science, it's also this incredible honor that we get to work with really the last remaining parts of these incredible people. And so we run experiments on their immune cells, and we run experiments on their lymph node tissue, and they're no longer alive, but these pieces of them and who they are have the ability to continue to help people. And they're helping many of you all on the screen, and helping me, because we're able to learn more about the disease from them. So I just think it's important, and I know Maleva feels the same way, to recognize and just take a moment to think about all of the people who have come before us, and how we're going to continue to fight so that no one can be in this position moving forward. And really that's the goal of the CDCN. Our mission, our vision is a world where all patients live full lives. That's in quantity and quality, and patients with other conditions benefit from our work. And so it's not unrealistic to say that we're going to get to a world. My goal would be in the next 10 years to where every patient with Castleman disease is immediately diagnosed, and that they can live a full life after diagnosis. So quality and quantity, we will live as long as we would have if we didn't have Castleman disease, and it will be as full of a life as if we didn't have Castleman disease. That's our goal. In order to do that, we need to diagnose patients more quickly and effectively. We need to treat patients better. We need to better understand this disease from a research perspective. But I do believe that it's attainable, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of contributions of medical data and samples and research funding to get us to that world that we're going after. So a couple other bullet points that we just have for this screen, where we're moving forward, in the future. It's, really leading in drug repurposing for Castleman's. And for those of you that are new to the concept of repurposing, this just means taking drugs that are already FDA approved, they're already at your neighborhood pharmacy, and figuring out, can they be useful for Castleman's? Can those drugs be useful for other diseases? In order to do that, you have to really unlock the mysteries of Castleman's and the immune system. You have to conduct research and also clinical trials. And we've got to continue to find new treatments for patients. So I think I'm just going to wrap up the program part of it here by saying that our next community gathering is going to be Rare Disease Day. Rare Disease Day is technically February 29th, which is the rarest day of the year. But in years that there is no February 29th, we hold it and celebrate it on February 28th. So let's turn over to the Ask Us Anything part of the program. Feel free to go ahead and turn your video on. While you guys are thinking through any questions you guys might have, I do just want to give a quick update about an organization called Every Cure. Every Cure was started based on the inspiration from the CDCN, where we've unlocked existing drugs that could be used in new ways for Castleman's. And based on our success with repurposing for Castleman disease, we've set up an entirely new organization called Every Cure to look for opportunities like this to repurpose drugs across all diseases. So not just Castleman's, not just COVID, but really across all diseases. And we're building out a team so that team can really make a huge impact. Again, inspired by the CDC and inspired by what we've done, but have a much broader impact. So yeah. Happy to turn it over to you guys. Feel free to unmute. I love seeing you guys videos on. Feel free to turn your video on, unmute, ask any questions, and I'll ask my colleagues like Sheila and Amber and Chriswell and others, if there's questions about Accelerate or the biobank or about what we're doing, I'll ask them to chime in with any answers. But please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions.
Oh, it's quiet tonight.
Go ahead, Penny.
I don't have anything to say. I'm just noticing how quiet it is. Actually, I do have something to say. We kind of touched on this when I first.
Okay, I have a question. Okay.
Okay,
go. Be safe.
Go.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
No. Okay. Well, okay. We have to, from now on, it's Christmas and Merry Christmas. And we need to, have a new hope in 2023. And the first goal, we need to hit out the Rare Disease Days in February 28th, right? What we can do and what you want us to do first. So we kind of know where we go.
Great question. So Rare Disease Day, as Yankee said, is February 28th, and then World Castleman Disease Day is July 23rd. And those are both great opportunities to raise awareness. So Rare Disease Day, raising awareness about the 7,000 rare diseases out there. It's a good opportunity to share about Castleman's. But of course, as you know, Yankee, it is a little hard to get people's attention because there's 7,000 other groups that are also trying to, raise awareness about their disease. But let's do it. Let's post on social. let's reach out to friends and family, but then also let's use that almost as like a practice run for July 23rd, which is World Castleman Disease Day, when, there's no one else that's got it, celebrating anything that day. Although who knows, there seems to be a day for everything. So it might be like World Hot Dog Day or something, but if it's, hopefully it's not World Hot Dog Day, and we can get a lot of attention. I think we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and both days are great opportunities to raise awareness. Penny, you were going to ask a question.
Oh, I was just going to say, you said we would talk about it later, that my new treatment is working pretty well. I'm on obinutuzumab. And as far as I know, I don't think anyone else is on it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anyone else. It's sort of like the new version of rituximab. It's like the newer, souped up version of rituximab. So I suspect there's probably some people on the call who are on rituximab or who have received rituximab. I received it in the past. It was not effective for me, but it is effective for some patients. But this is the sort of the newer version of that, which I'm so happy to hear it's helping you, Penny.
Yeah, it's better than the rituximab was. I think what happened with the rituximab was I kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
Like the efficacy was wearing off for me, and I started having symptoms coming back. But this
no
has
more.
this has made symptoms manageable. I have energy. I'm able to do stuff. I'm hell on wheels again. I need a nap afterwards, but I'm hell on wheels again.
Nice. I love it. I love it. That's amazing.
I have another question.
Sure.
Okay, because sometimes we watch the when we're reading a Facebook, and we see the people when they miss the treatment. Like I didn't miss my treatment. I feel very fatigued. Okay, I mean, first, is it normal? And secondly, I know some patients, because the insurance, they will stop their treatment. What they can do. I'm lucky I have a good insurance, but how about other patients? If they have struggled to continuing the treatment, what is the option or a more economy way to do it to give them be normal?
Great question. So maybe I'll hit the second one first, and that's
they can see you.
It's really dependent on that particular patient situation. And so, the first thing I would do if I found out that I lost access to my drug that I was receiving is, so first off, you want to talk to your doctor and see if your doctor can make some phone calls to the insurance company. Oftentimes, insurance companies will cut someone off, and then with enough phone calls from your doctor, you can get it turned back on. So the first thing I would do, call your doctor. Second thing I would do is I would call Maleva. And I think that's probably my answer to just about everything is, first thing, call your doctor. Second thing, call Maleva. And when you call Maleva, what she can do is she can help you to understand, are there other doctors that you could go see? Maybe you need to come to UPenn, or maybe you go to Little Rock, because maybe we're able to get access to that drug in a way that maybe your doctor's not. So call your doctor, call Maleva, and then she might help get you somewhere else. That's what I would do. And then of course, Maleva will help to troubleshoot, but it's a great question. And it's an important question because, medications are great, but they're not great if you can't take them. So, we're happy to help if we can.
I have another option for that too.
Sure.
My new drug is not covered, and the insurance company would not cover it. Dr. Nasta had the pharmacist at Penn call the manufacturer, who agreed to sponsor me for life.
Wow.
Oh,
that's awesome.
So as long as I'm not covered, they're giving me the drug.
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
Amazing.
So that's another option. If they find out that you can't be covered on their drug, they might give it to you, especially with such a rare disease.
Exactly. And Penny, that's exactly why it's so important to have that sort of a doctor who is able to make those phone calls and is able to have those kinds of relationships. I totally agree with that. I wasn't aware of that's exactly right.
Yeah, it worked out well for me.
Love it.
Could I ask a question? it's about the Accelerate program. So I'm in Northern Ireland, and originally I wasn't able to join because of being part of the EU, but we're not part of the EU anymore. Now, the last I had heard, I had to get in touch with, like, I don't know, it's like a doctor that's, you know, like connected to CDCN, like a specialist guy. But the closest, like, I'm Northern Ireland, and the closest one I think is London, is who I just see a hematologist, but
Yep.
they would kind of link up with them and that. So is there any way that I can join without having to go to London, like, or?
Yeah, great question. So just for context for the whole crew, well, first off, Accelerate is open to anyone in the world to join. If you happen to be anywhere in the world except for a handful of European countries, you can go to the website, and we'll have someone throw it in the chat, cdcn.org/accelerate. You can go to the website and you can sign up on your own. And it's really easy and simple. And I think most people on this call have either done it, or I hope that they're about to do it right after we get off this Zoom call. But if you are in one of those 5 countries in Europe, then you're exactly right. We actually have physicians in those countries where you're supposed to see the physician before you can get into Accelerate. That's changing. Over the next year or two, we will be changing it so that even if you're in those European countries, you can still you will be able to get into yourself when you on your own without needing to go through those countries. Sheila, maybe you can chime in terms of Northern Ireland. I guess, is that one of the things that if you click it, it'll tell you that you have to go to London? Is that right, Sheila?
Yeah, so I think when you select that in our registry, so one of the first questions is what country are you located in? And I think that will automatically, as you're saying, kick you to go see this physician in London, as you're saying. But just like David is saying, we're trying to get, we're essentially going to be shifting some things around. And so I think within the next 12 months, we should be able to include you in the global arm rather than in these site-based arms to make it a little bit easier. So keep in touch with us, and we can, if you want to either direct message me, we can kind of keep track of you and reach out when we're able to get you in there through the other method.
Super. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kate. And I also am realizing how late it is your time too.
Yeah.
So
It's way past my bedtime.
Yeah, thank you for wanting to join Accelerate, because it's literally the best thing that any of us can do for helping to advance treatment for this disease. And thanks for calling in so late.
It's all good.
Hello, could I add something there?
Please.
I'd just like to say hello, Coach. I'm from Galway.
Oh, hi.
I live in Southern
right.
Ireland, the Republic. And I was able to join Accelerate there and then online, and I was able to, I phoned Bridget, and I donated blood, saliva, and that, and so we could accelerate then the records as well. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I think, is there somebody in Cork? Maybe, is it one of the doctors are in Cork for you?
I just see my hematologist, and he at first, when I was diagnosed, he asked me would I get involved in research, and I said yes, sure.
Yeah.
And so I just joined up with CDCN myself, and he's fully behind me. Yeah.
And you could just do the Accelerate online?
I just did it online. Yeah, it didn't, my address is like the Republic of Ireland, so it didn't actually stop me from, didn't actually indicate that I had to go to any other doctor, consultant. No, it didn't. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way we built the system back 6 years ago, was that if you are in this case, the UK or Spain or Italy or Norway or no, I'm not Portugal. I don't remember the last one. Germany and France. Then yes, if you're in one of those countries, then the system just basically kicked back and said you have to go to one of these sites, because that was how we initially set up the registry. But like we said, we're over the next 12 months, we're going to be transitioning away from that system. And so yeah, Kate, you should be able to just go to the website and just do it on your own, but Sheila can keep you posted.
Super. Also, just while I'm chatting, I'm on sultuximab now this past I don't know, 3 years, I suppose. And I've stretched out to 12 weeks. Now I'm actually waiting. This will be 13 weeks because, well, they wouldn't let me up to the unit with having a cold. Is there, I mean, like, is there any chance you can just come off it and then if you flare up, go on it again? Because I would still have, you know, like the night sweats and fatigue and stuff like that anyway with it. But it stops the tafro, you know, taking hold.
Yep. It's a great question. So unfortunately, the research hasn't been done to ask whether stopping it puts you at increased risk of bad outcomes. There are certainly autoimmune diseases where you can go off of a drug, and then when you have relapse, you can go back on the drug. And in some of those autoimmune diseases, works like a charm and you're fine. In other ones, the drug isn't as effective in the relapse setting as it is in the maintenance setting. In Castleman's, we do know that just about everyone that we're aware of who goes off of treatment will relapse. There are maybe some notable exceptions. So if you were to go off treatment, you would probably need to expect that you will relapse, and you sort of have to make a calculation in terms of like, what's your sort of risk threshold in terms of like, how okay are you with relapsing? For me, I've had four relapses, so 5 flares. I like no tolerance for wanting to relapse. And so like, I will be on treatment forever because like, I like not relapsing. And so, but it's totally up to everyone. You know, we have a good friend of the Castleman's community who was off treatment for like 3 or 4 years, and it was amazing. And he did great for 3 or 4 years. And then he had a really explosive relapse. And, you know, you could argue that like he didn't have to deal with infusions for 3 or 4 years. He didn't have to worry about Castleman's for 3 or 4 years. And like, he got some benefit from that, but then he also got some like massive terror from like, you know, critical illness of the disease recurring so quickly. Thankfully, the drugs worked for him. The siltuximab worked for him, and he was fine when he went back on it. But it's really sort of every patient decision in terms of whether you're how good you feel about spreading it out, and also how good you feel about stopping it.
Yeah, it's very risky to like that tafro nonsense isn't fun, like, so.
No.
It's terrible. Don't really want to do that again. So
I agree.
Yeah.
But it really is, you know, it's your decision, and it's every patient gets to make these sorts of decisions. Obviously talk to your doctor about it. And so it's, you know, you and your doctor's decision, but I think that it's a really important question. And then the other question is, are there ways to make it more convenient? So like, it's not so bothersome to keep getting an infusion, whether it's an infusion of siltuximab in your case, or I get an infusion of IVIG. You know, there are things you can do to make it more convenient so you can sort of live with it. Like, you can get the infusion at home. And I don't know if that's possible near where you are, but here in the US, you can set up to get your infusion at home. So it's not as inconvenient. You don't have to go into the hospital. You can just, you know, have a nurse come to your house, and that actually doesn't cost any more. And at first, when I heard about that idea of home infusion, I thought that was a strange idea. I didn't want to do it. Sheila knows I used to do my infusion in the office because I didn't want to miss out on work. And so I would just like keep working during the infusion, and I would get very confused, and my work was not very productive, and I just shouldn't have working at all. We called it IVIG brain. I still call it IVIG brain, but now I do my infusion at 5 p.m. on a Friday. So the only person that has to deal with my IVIG brain is my wife and 2 beautiful children. And it doesn't, you know, affect my daily work. But so those are things you can think about, is, you know, is home infusion going to make life more simple?
And David, if I can also kind of chime in here, I think, you know, it seems to me like one of the hard things is that for both patients and I think physicians as well, is we don't know what's causing Castleman disease. So it's really kind of unknown, the whole, you know, whether or not patients should be going off treatment, or when, or who. And so what we're trying to really do is understand what's causing Castleman disease. And that for us, you know, as for you guys as patients, one of the most helpful things is, if you think that you're getting sick, in addition to, you know, first calling your doctor, is if you call us, and, you know, Bridget, who isn't able to be on tonight, but she can help get a blood sample right away, because those blood samples, when, you know, which we hope doesn't happen, but if you start getting sick, those are the blood samples that are really, really helpful for us to try to figure out what actually is causing Castleman disease, and, you know, whether or not there eventually are patients who could go off treatment.
It's such a good point because, I can tell you, we've done this in a lot of you and also in my samples. When we're healthy like we are now, our blood samples look very normal. There's really no evidence that we're a Castleman's patient, but we can see a glimpse into the disease when we're sick. And so giving a blood sample when we're sick, as Sheila said, we hope that none of us relapse and get sick. But like that is really helpful, and we can be as helpful as we can be to make it really convenient. So we can even send a nurse to your house. We can set you up with a local Quest Diagnostics to give a blood sample there. But as Sheila said, it's just so helpful if you do give a blood sample if you do get sick with Castleman's. I see that Nick has his hand raised.
Hi, Doctor. Hello, everyone. I have two questions, and they may be redundant. The first question is regarding the treatment of cetuximab. Any long-term negative impacts on being cetuximab? I've been on it since May of 2020 was my first treatment, and I've been doing fine with it. I have no issues. I'm just wondering, long-term, what's any side effects or any long-term effects of being on the drug?
Yeah, great question.
Was the first question. And and then the second question is more about relapse. So if you maybe I could talk more about that after you talk about cetuximab.
Sure. So with the first question, one of the reasons that we set up Accelerate was to try to get a sense for what safety looked like long-term in patients on cetuximab. The first cetuximab patients were dosed somewhere in the mid 2000s, so around like 2005, 2006. And so that means that, we've got 16 or so years worth of follow-up data on at least some number of patients. Certainly more patients have less data than that, but we have not uncovered any long-term issues or any what's called like cumulative side effects, meaning that like as more doses are given to you, you're more at risk of some side effect. The kinds of things that we hear about in patients that are on cetuximab are things like red blood cell counts being maybe borderline low. So maybe a hemoglobin that's a little low, platelet counts that are borderline low, but not clinically significant. So like you don't feel different or have bleeding problems because of it, but your counts are a little low. We also hear about some patients will report weight gain while they're on cetuximab. And sometimes it's unclear if that's like good weight gain because like you were so sick before your Castleman's that now you're like gaining good weight, or in some cases it may be unintentional weight gain that maybe isn't as sort of like bouncing back from your Castleman's weight gain. Those are things we hear about, but the good news is we don't hear about long-term side effects. And I'm seeing Francis's cute little one and getting distracted. But yes, the good news is that there hasn't been a big safety signal. And again, that was one of the top 2 or 3 reasons why we really wanted to build Accelerate, is to see if there were long-term safety signals.
Excellent.
It's a very well tolerated drug.
Yeah, and for me, it's been, I guess, a game changer. So I was just curious. The second question is I've heard and I've read online about relapses. And how do you know it's a relapse and not something else? For example, this past August, I just became very weak and lethargic, had a really high fever, went to the ER, had a blood pressure of 60 and a temperature of 104. And my labs were all over the place. My white blood cell counts were crazy. Everything was out of spec as far as my blood work. And they couldn't determine what was going on. I was in the ICU for a couple of days and they said I had a blood infection that was sepsis.
Yeah.
And I asked if it was related to Castleman's, and of course, most of the doctors really know what Castleman's was.
Oh, Nick just got muted. Sorry, it looks like someone might have muted Nick by accident. Oh, Nick, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I was just curious, what does a relapse look like? They didn't say it wasn't Castleman's. They said it was some type of blood infection.
Yep.
Had all the signs of blood, but they couldn't pinpoint where the blood infection was coming from. So I just don't know. So I'm just curious, what does a relapse look like?
Oh, it's such a great question. And I think that some of these questions are things that we should like pin on the Facebook group, because they're such good questions that I think a lot of people are asking and wondering. So I'm glad you asked it. So in our experience, relapses are really a recurrence of the same symptoms and abnormalities you had for when you first showed up with your Castleman disease. So like whatever symptoms you had, whatever blood tests were abnormal, whatever organs weren't working or were working, generally a relapse is going to be a recurrence of those same things. And so like if someone has kind of a mild presentation early on, their relapses are going to be generally mild. Like it's going to be a recurrence of the same thing that as it showed up the first time, which is a good thing, because some diseases are progressive, meaning that like recurrences are worse than the times before. So, but Castleman's is fairly consistent in that the relapses are similarly bad to the first presentation. So whatever you presented with, whatever you first were like when you felt sick, whatever those symptoms were, whatever blood tests were abnormal, those are the things you should be looking for. If they start returning and you say, I felt this before, like I felt this abdominal pain, I felt the lumps and bumps in my neck, I felt the fever, you should be concerned that it could be a relapse. But of course, you want to reach out to your doctor. And the first thing your doctor is going to do is to try to make sure it's not something else. So the first thing you'd want to think is this some sort of infection? Does this patient have COVID? Do they have the flu? Do they have EBV? Do they have an infection of their blood, which is sepsis? And so you want to kind of think through, like, what are all these other things that could mimic or look like Castleman's? And if it's one of those things, then you can say, good news. Like I remember I was hospitalized for the flu like 4 years ago. And I can tell you, no one has ever been so happy ever to be diagnosed with the flu. I was like, yes, I have the flu. This is the greatest news ever. Like I was so happy because I was in the hospital and I was really sick, but it was not from Castleman's. It was the flu. And that was like amazing. And a few days later, I left the hospital. And so, you want to sort of rule out the things that it could be. And then once you've excluded, okay, it's not sepsis, it's not the flu, it's not these things, then you're going to be more worried that it's Castleman disease. And if you're currently on treatment when that recurrence happens, now you're going to have to start thinking, what other treatment should I be on? Because clearly whatever I was on was not able to prevent this thing from coming back. And so if you're on siltuximab or tocilizumab and that happens, then you should contact us, because we have a clinical trial of a drug called sirolimus, which is the drug I take, and we could enroll you into that trial and see whether sirolimus could help you. But of course, you should always talk to your doctor and see if there's, something else that could be helpful for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Debbie.
Hi there. Hi. I had a question actually, and it was regarding sirolimus. I was just kind of curious how the clinical trial was going. And then I didn't know if you had an estimate of like how many patients are on sirolimus.
Yeah, these are good questions. So we know that in terms of the clinical trial, we've really struggled with enrollment. You may know that we opened the trial just before the pandemic and have struggled to enroll patients. I think, Debbie, if I remember correctly, you got sick right around the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I did.
And you would have been like the perfect candidate for the trial, and sirolimus made a really big impact in your life. And so we would have loved for you to be in the trial, but it was like, I think it was when everything was shut down. Like it was like April of 2020 or something like that.
Yeah. And what I was told was, fortunately, I was already on sirolimus because my doctor knew you.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So they said you cannot be part of the clinical trial because you're already on sirolimus.
But when I talked to your doctor, I would have told your doctor, let's have Debbie come down to Penn and let's get her on the trial. I would have encouraged.
Oh, I see.
But when I talked to your doctor, who I happened to go to college with,
Right.
when I talked to him, I said, it's April of the pandemic. And
COVID.
you guys remember, like, people weren't even driving places back in April of 2020, right?
Right.
So it was like, no one was even, so we couldn't, we wouldn't have been able to enroll you, but you would have been a perfect candidate. And I know that sirolimus helped you a lot. So we've struggled because patients like yourself, we haven't felt comfortable having them travel, or they haven't felt comfortable traveling. So we just enrolled our 6th patient into the trial like a week or 2 ago. We've got 2 other promising candidates who might be on the Zoom call right now. I'm not sure, but 2 more candidates that look like they may be eligible and they may end up joining the trial. So as you can imagine, we wanted to enroll 24 patients in 2 years, and we've enrolled 6 in like 2.5. So we've not enrolled at nearly the speed, although we have looked at eligibility for over 30. So if COVID wasn't a thing, and if a lot of things added up, we could, be around 24 patients by now. But for, unfortunately, we're at a low number enrolled. And then in terms of patients not on it, that are patients that are on it, but not in the trial, that's really hard for us to know. But we do know that there are a number of patients like yourself who are benefiting, and it's great if you can be a part of the trial. But it's the most important thing is, are you doing well?
Definitely. Very thankful.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah.
And then I see Andrew's got his hand up, and I'm just looking at the clock. We'll finish up in the next 7 or 8 minutes, if that's okay. Feel free to throw in questions and comments in the chat, and Andrew, feel free to take us away.
Hi, David. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Quick question. Do you have or had any patients that have done a stem cell transplant and that's actually helped them?
So unfortunately, there haven't been too many stem cell transplants in the first place. And even among the few that there have been, we've heard about 1 or 2 rare cases where someone's had a nice long remission, but we've also heard about a number of cases where patients did have a recurrence even after the stem cell transplant. Did you have a stem cell transplant yourself?
No, I haven't. Coming up, I just had a really bad a year. I spent 5 months in the hospital, a few days in the ICU, and I think after I get myself the strength comes back, and I put some more weight on because I lost like 40 pounds or whatever. I'll be able to do the stem cell transplant maybe sometime next year.
And do you know, will you be getting someone else's cells, or will you be getting your own cells? Do you know?
My own cells.
Your own cells. So that's what's called an autologous stem cell transplant. And are you in Vancouver, Andrew?
No, Bermuda.
Bermuda. Okay, you're different. Different. There's an Andrew in Vancouver. I felt like I was like a what do they call it? A psychic. I'm like, Andrew, are you in? But I was wrong. I was wrong on my guess. But yeah, Andrew, please do reach out to us if you haven't been in touch already. We're happy to share thoughts and experiences. Because there are certain variants of Castleman disease that are quite responsive to transplants, autologous transplants. There's one called POEMS syndrome or POEMS associated Castleman disease.
As well,
yeah, so POEMS Castleman disease does have reports of people benefiting from an autologous transplant, which is what it sounds like you're potentially up for.
Yeah. Okay.
And then sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've signed up for the Accelerate program, and I think my wife reached out to you a bunch of times.
Yeah, I remember now. You guys were in Boston. I remember you now.
Yeah.
So I remember you now. Yes, your wife and I were WhatsApp messaging like daily and hourly for a while because you were really sick. You were in the ICU and you were like on a ventilator, not doing well. Yeah, I remember that. So I'm just going to make a comment, Andrew, about just for the whole group. When someone goes through what Andrew went through and a number of other folks on this call have gone through, ICU and so sick and all that sort of stuff, I think that sometimes we can not even fathom the idea of getting ourselves back to full health, because it's like we've been through hell and it's like, as long as I'm just like not in hell, I'm happy. But I will tell you that I think the goal for all of us really should be getting back to our pre-Castleman's illness. Like that's the goal. Like, if you're still unwell and you're still tired and you're still, having issues with your disease and symptoms, we should be thinking, is there something else for you? Because I can tell you that there is not necessarily a drug for everyone, and that's why we do the research we do. But for a lot of us, there are drugs that can really get us back to our full lives. I mean, I am fully back. I look at Gary, who's on the line. Gary is fully back. I mean, and he was as sick as you were, Andrew. And so I guess just a comment to say, and I know there's other folks who are doing really well now and others who are still struggling with symptoms, but the goal should be to get to fully back to where you were. It's not always going to be the case, and that's why we do research. But don't sort of stop before you get back to 100% and just assume, well, this is a bad disease, so I'll never get there. I think it is good to ask, like, what else could I be doing that could maybe get me back to where I was before I got sick?
Great. Thanks, David. Thank you for all your help over the years. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. We'll send more samples to the Accelerate program. be in touch before we get to Boston.
That would be awesome. And
My wife says to say hello.
yes, tell her I sent to say hello.
Merry
After
Christmas to you and everyone.
Merry Christmas to you. And after all those WhatsApp messages, tell her I'm happy to see you doing so well. That makes me really happy.
Great. Thanks, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Any final words? I mean, yeah, we're about to wrap up, and I see we've got Yankees Santa Claus hat on, and I see some holiday stuff in the backgrounds, a wreath. I see Penny's cocktail to start celebrating. Of course, just want to wish everyone happy holidays. And, we said earlier that we're so thankful for all of you. And I'm so thankful for all the amazing people on our team who are on the call tonight and for all that they do. But yeah, any parting words or last comments before we wrap up?
I have one.
Sure.
So do we have a date for our next summit yet?
Good question.
Yeah, girl, are you coming next year?
Oh, you better believe it.
Oh yeah.
Good. I don't think we do. Amber, do we have a date yet? I don't think we do.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but I was going to jump in and say if there are things that, we do the summits for the patients. So if there are things in particular that people would like us to cover, maybe, that's something to let us know at the next community gathering, and we can get that in the works for the next summit.
Absolutely.
I would like a shuttle from the hotel to the summit.
Yeah, me too.
Right? I'm not the only one.
No, I noted that. I think that we need that. Yeah.
We'll get a horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah, a few people Uber.
No horse-drawn carriage, but we will figure out a solution.
Yeah, it was awesome. I will definitely be. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I love the summit this year. It was so great. I love it every year. We look forward to it so much. I'm so glad you guys had good experiences. So no, we don't have a date yet, but we will get a date soon, and we'll make sure to get that out to everyone so you guys can get on your calendars. And if you haven't been, I hope you'll come visit us in Philadelphia. It's a really special weekend. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight and for everything you guys do to contribute to this fight. We're going to keep pushing forward, and every blood sample, every dollar you guys donate, every data set that you donate through your records, we're going to make use of. And I'm really excited for big 2023.
Hey.
Well, you guys should expect one last thing before we go, and it's an early Christmas gift for me. Will everyone do a flex, and we'll do a picture flexing. So
how do we do this from here?
It's here, so we're flexing like this. All right, so I'm gonna start flexing. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, nice. All right, guys. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Holidays.
Stay healthy, stay safe.
Happy holidays! Yay!
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy. Yankee with her.